Imagine a quiet bride-to-be clutching her late mother's restored wedding dress only to have it destroyed by cruel bullies who thought they could break her spirit. But what happens when those same bullies awaken? The protective fury of a Navy SEAL who chooses justice over vengeance. Buckle up for a heart-pounding tale of love, trauma, and redemption that'll leave you speechless. A twist in the sun-drenched coastal town of Clearwater, Florida. 27-year-old Emma Caldwell stood in Aunt Rosa's sewing room staring at the most beautiful sight she'd ever seen: her mother's wedding dress fully restored after months of painstaking work. The delicate beadwork caught the afternoon light like scattered diamonds, and the silk fabric seemed to glow with its own inner radiance. This wasn't just a dress, it was a bridge between the woman she'd lost and the woman she was becoming. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Mia, your mama would be so proud, Aunt Rosa whispered, her weathered hands trembling as she adjusted the pearl buttons along the bodice. Rosa had been more than an aunt after Emma's mother. Sophia died of cancer when Emma was 16. She'd been a lifeline, a surrogate mother who'd helped piece together a shattered teenage heart. Emma slipped into the dress, feeling the cool silk lining against her skin as Rosa's skilled fingers worked the tiny buttons up her spine, each one clicking into place like a promise. When Emma finally turned to face the full-length mirror, she gasped. The woman staring back wasn't the broken 16-year-old who'd been mocked for her thrift store clothes and quiet nature. This was a bride radiant and whole, wearing her mother's love like armor. The front door's familiar creak interrupted their moment, followed by heavy footsteps and Jack Dalton's deep voice calling out, "Ladies, I hope you're decent, because I've got a surprise." Emma quickly changed back into her sundress, carefully hanging the gown while Rosa went to greet their visitor through the hallway. She could hear Jack's laugh mixing with Rosa's delighted exclamations, and something about the sound made her heart flutter the way it had on their first date. 3 years ago, Jack appeared in the doorway, still dressed in his workout gear from his morning session, with Toby sweat darkened his gray t-shirt, but his green eyes sparkled with mischief. Even now, Emma marveled at how this man, this incredibly strong, devastatingly handsome former Navy SEAL, had chosen quiet, bookish her. "Close your eyes," he said, producing a small velvet box from his pocket. "Jack, we already have rings," Emma laughed. But she obeyed, feeling his warm hands gently lift her hair away from her neck. Something cool and delicate settled against her throat, and when she opened her eyes, the silver locket nestled just below her collarbone was etched with tiny roses, almost identical to the one her mother had worn in old photographs. Inside were 2 photos, one of her mother on her own wedding day, young and glowing, and another of Emma and Jack from last Christmas, laughing as they built a snowman during their trip to Colorado. Emma's composure finally cracked, tears spilling over as she turned into Jack's embrace. He smelled like ocean air and faint cologne, and when his arms tightened around her, she felt truly safe for the first time since high school. That evening, as they sat on Rosa's back porch sharing takeout from their favorite Cuban restaurant, Emma's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message made her stomach clench with familiar anxiety. "Hey, Emma. It's Vanessa Briggs from high school. Heard through the grapevine you're getting married this weekend. Congratulations. A few of us are having a casual reunion thing tomorrow night at the Clearwater Country Club. Nothing fancy, just drinks and catching up. Would love to see you." Emma's fork clattered against her plate, the sudden silence drawing Jack's attention from his conversation with Rosa about weekend fishing plans. He took one look at her pale face, and his expression shifted from casual interest to sharp assessment. She'd told him about high school, about Vanessa Briggs and her crew of mean girls who'd made her life hell for 4 long years. "You don't have to go," he said quietly, his hand finding hers across the small table. "I know," Emma replied, staring at the message. Part of her wanted to delete it, to pretend Vanessa Briggs didn't exist, but another part, the part that had grown stronger over the past 3 years with Jack's love and Rosa's support, was curious. Maybe it would be good closure, show them I'm not the scared girl they remember. Rosa leaned forward, her expression concerned. Mia. Some people never change their hearts, they just get better at hiding their poison. But Emma had already started typing her response. Jack watching her with the patient alertness of a man trained to assess threats from every angle. Hi Vanessa, thanks for thinking of me. I'll try to stop by. Emma, the Clearwater Country Club hadn't changed much in the 11 years since Emma's graduation. The same cream-colored stucco walls, the same pretentious chandelier in the lobby, the same undercurrent of judgment disguised as Southern hospitality. Emma smoothed her simple navy dress as she and Jack approached the private dining room where voices and laughter spilled out into the hallway. We can leave anytime, Jack murmured, his hand warm and steady at the small of her back. He'd traded his usual casual wear for dark jeans and a button-down shirt that made his shoulders look impossibly broad. Emma felt a flutter of pride, knowing he was hers, that this gorgeous, accomplished man had chosen her. When Vanessa Briggs glided over to greet them, Emma felt herself transported back to senior year, small and insignificant under that calculating gaze. Vanessa had maintained her high school beauty with the dedication of someone whose identity depended on it. Her blonde hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her designer dress hugging curves that personal trainers and expensive procedures had preserved. But there was something brittle about her smile, something desperate in the way she air-kissed Emma's cheeks. Emma. Vanessa's voice carried across the room, drawing attention like a spotlight. Oh my God, look at you, and this must be the famous Jack. I've seen your photos on social media. Navy SEAL, right? How exciting. Former. Jack replied politely, his tone neutral, but his posture alert. Emma could feel the subtle shift in his stance, the way he positioned himself slightly between her and Vanessa. Lacey Morrison and Miranda Wells materialized like sharks drawn to blood. In the water, Lacey worked at the local department store, now her once perfect skin showing the effects of too much sun and cheap makeup. Miranda had embraced the MLM lifestyle, her Instagram filled with before and after photos and inspirational quotes about being your own boss. Emma Thompson, Miranda said with false sweetness. Sorry, Emma Caldwell now, right? God, it's been forever. You look exactly the same. Lacey added, and somehow made it sound like an insult. Still shopping at thrift stores, I see. Emma's cheeks burned. The dress wasn't from a thrift store. She'd bought it at a nice boutique in Tampa, but she could feel herself shrinking under their scrutiny, becoming that awkward teenager again. Actually, Emma's an art teacher now, Jack interjected smoothly. She just had a piece selected for the Regional Arts Festival. Very talented. The compliment steadied her, reminding her of who she'd become. It's just a small watercolor, she said modestly, but Jack's pride in her accomplishment made her stand a little straighter. How sweet, Vanessa said, her smile sharp. Still painting, I see. Remember in high school when you used to hide in the art room during lunch? Miss Patterson always felt so sorry for you. The comment hit its mark, bringing back memories of eating sandwiches alone while other students laughed and socialized. Emma felt Jack's hand tighten almost imperceptibly on her waist, a silent reminder of his presence. The conversation continued in this vein for another hour, each exchange feeling like a carefully orchestrated dance of passive-aggressive jabs and false compliments. When someone mentioned her mother's illness, asking with fake concern how she was coping with the loss, Emma felt the familiar sting of grief mixed with anger. These women had tormented her during the worst period of her life, and now they wanted to pick at the wound with surgical precision. I think we should head out, Jack said, suddenly, his voice carrying a finality that brooked no argument. Early morning tomorrow. As they made their goodbyes, Vanessa hugged Emma a little too tightly, her perfume cloying and overwhelming. So glad you could make it, she whispered in Emma's ear. You always were so brave facing things alone. Something about the comment felt like a threat disguised as concern, but Emma was too tired to analyze it in the car. Jack was unusually quiet, his jaw tight as he navigated the dark roads back to Rosa's house. Emma could feel his anger simmering beneath the surface, controlled but present. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "I should have listened to Rosa." "You have nothing to apologize for," Jack replied, his voice carefully controlled. "But next time someone makes you feel small like that, we're leaving immediately. Deal?" Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Emma woke Saturday morning with a headache and the lingering taste of anxiety from the night before. 3 days until the wedding, and instead of feeling excited, she felt unsettled by her encounter with Vanessa and her old crew. Rosa had coffee ready and breakfast waiting, her maternal instincts picking up on Emma's mood. Jack had left early for a final training session with Toby, something about maintaining their physical conditioning, even in civilian life. Emma appreciated the routine. It gave him the way it kept the restless energy at bay she'd learned to read the signs of when he needed to move to work out the demons that military service had left behind. What she didn't know was that 3 blocks away, Vanessa Briggs was sitting in her car outside Rosa's house waiting and watching. Vanessa had spent a sleepless night stewing over the reunion, over Emma's quiet confidence, and that gorgeous fiancé who'd looked at her like she was something special. It wasn't fair. Emma Thompson had always been nothing, awkward, poor, motherless, and now she was glowing with happiness while Vanessa's own life felt like it was crumbling. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago, taking half her assets and most of her social standing. The boutique she'd opened with her settlement money was failing, hemorrhaging cash as fast as she could pump it, and her ex-husband was already engaged to someone younger, prettier, more successful, and here was Emma, plain little Emma, about to marry a man who looked like he belonged in a magazine. When Emma's car pulled out of Rosa's driveway, Vanessa felt a familiar surge of malicious satisfaction. She knew Rosa kept a spare key under the ceramic frog by the back door, had seen Emma retrieve it once when they'd followed her home from school years ago. Some habits died hard. Lacey and Miranda met her around the corner, both jittery with nervous energy and cheap wine from their pre-sabotage celebration they'd spent hours at Lacey's apartment, working themselves up with stories of Emma's arrogance, her undeserved happiness. The way she'd looked down on them at the reunion house was quiet and dim. Afternoon sunlight filtering through closed blinds, they found the sewing room easily, the wedding dress hanging like a white flag of surrender in the center of the space. Up close, it was even more beautiful than the photos Emma had posted online. Delicate lace, hand-sewn beading, the kind of craftsmanship that spoke of love and patience. "It's actually really pretty," Lacey whispered, and for a moment Vanessa saw doubt flicker across her face. But the wine and years of accumulated resentment were stronger than conscience. Vanessa pulled fabric scissors from Rosa's sewing kit, the blades sharp and cold in her hands. "She always thought she was better than us," Vanessa said, raising the scissors toward the bodice. "Let's see how special she feels now." The first cut was tentative, a small slice through the satin skirt, but once the damage was started, it became easier. Lacey held the dress while Vanessa and Miranda took turns with different tools, scissors, a seam ripper, even a lighter that Miranda had brought just in case. They worked quickly, methodically, turning the beautiful gown into ribbons and tatters. The beadwork scattered across Rosa's hardwood floor like fallen stars. The lace was shredded beyond repair when they were finished. The dress looked like it had been fed through a wood chipper. Vanessa pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse, placing it carefully on Rosa's sewing table where it couldn't be missed. The message was brief but devastating. "Some things don't change, neither do nobodies." Emma returned home 2 hours later, humming softly as she carried shopping bags and wedding programs up Rosa's front steps. The house felt different somehow, though she couldn't put her finger on why. Maybe it was just pre-wedding nerves making her hypersensitive to every detail. Rosa was still out, so Emma decided to peek at the dress one more time to imagine how she'd look walking down the aisle toward Jack. She pushed open the sewing room door and froze, her shopping bags tumbling from numb fingers. The room looked like a crime scene. White fabric and scattered beads covered every surface. Her mother's dress, her beautiful, precious, irreplaceable dress, hung in shreds from the form destroyed beyond Recognition. Emma's legs gave out, sending her to her knees among the wreckage. She picked up pieces of lace with shaking hands, trying to fit them back together like a broken puzzle. She was still sitting there when Jack found her 20 minutes later, surrounded by the ruins of her wedding dress and her mother's memory. He took in the scene with the rapid assessment of a trained soldier, his face going granite hard as he processed what had happened. Emma, his voice was soft, careful as he knelt beside her. Baby, look at me. She couldn't bear to see pity or anger in his eyes, couldn't bear to see him realize that this was who she really was, the girl who got her things destroyed, who attracted cruelty like a magnet. I can't marry you. She whispered, the words torn from her throat like shrapnel. Not like this, not without. I can't walk down the aisle in some random dress from David's bridal. This was supposed to be special. This was supposed to be her. Jack's arms came around her, then strong and warm and completely enveloping. He held her while she sobbed, while she raged, while she mourned not just the dress, but the sense of safety she'd been foolish enough to think she'd found when Rosa came home and saw the destruction. Her cry of anguish echoed through the house, but Jack was already on his phone, making calls in the low, controlled voice that meant he was switching into tactical mode. Emma didn't know it yet, but Vanessa Briggs had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She'd hurt the woman Jack loved, and now she was going to learn what happened when you targeted a Navy SEALs family. The next morning, Emma woke in Rosa's guest room with swollen eyes and a heart that felt like it had been scraped raw through the thin walls. She could hear Jack's voice, low and urgent, talking to someone on the phone. Words like evidence, timeline, and legal options drifted through, making her stomach clench with fresh anxiety. Jack appeared in the doorway with coffee and toast, his expression carefully neutral. He'd been up most of the night, she realized, probably researching and planning while she'd finally cried herself to sleep. How are you feeling? He asked, settling on the edge of the bed. Like I want to crawl in a hole and disappear, Emma admitted, accepting the coffee gratefully. Jack, maybe we should just postpone the wedding, get married at the courthouse later when… No, his voice was firm but gentle. We're not letting them win. We're getting married on Sunday, exactly as planned. With what dress? Emma's voice cracked. I can't just run to the mall and grab something off the rack. That dress was my mom, Jack. It was the only piece of her I had left for the wedding. Jack's jaw tightened, and for a moment she saw the soldier he'd been, the man who'd completed impossible missions in impossible circumstances. Trust me, Emma, can you do that? Before she could answer, Rosa knocked on the doorframe. Mia, there's someone here to see you. Pastor Helen from the Methodist Church. Pastor Helen Briggs was a small woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes that held deep sadness. She sat in Rosa's living room with her hands folded, looking every inch the grieving mother. Emma didn't yet know she was. I heard about what happened to your dress, Pastor Helen said without preamble. I wanted to offer my help and my apologies. Your apologies. Emma settled across from her confused pastor. Helen's composure cracked slightly. My daughter was involved, Vanessa. I've suspected for years that she never outgrew her high school cruelties, but this… She shook her head. I failed her as a mother. And now she's hurt you in the most vicious way possible. Emma felt the room spin. Vanessa's mother was a pastor. The woman who'd tormented her through 4 years of hell was a preacher's daughter. I can't undo what she's done, Pastor Helen continued, her voice thick with shame. But I'd like to officiate your wedding, if you'll have me. No charge, of course, and I know several ladies in my congregation who are excellent seamstresses if there's any way to salvage. The dress is destroyed, Emma said flatly. Completely destroyed, Pastor Helen nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. Then we'll find another way. Love finds a way, child, it always does. After Pastor Helen left, Emma found Jack in Rosa's backyard, talking quietly into his phone. When he saw her, he ended the call quickly. That was Toby, he said, sliding the phone into his pocket. He's driving down from Tampa. Why? Jack's smile was sharp and predatory. Because he's the best cybersecurity expert I know, and someone just committed breaking and entering, destruction of property, and harassment across State lines through social media. Emma's eyes widen. You think they posted about it online? Honey, people like Vanessa can't help but brag about their victories. Toby's going to find every text, every photo, every digital breadcrumb they left behind. Jack's voice carried the cold satisfaction of someone who'd outmaneuvered the enemy. And then we're going to have a conversation about accountability. Toby Green arrived that afternoon in a modified van that looked like a mobile command center. Emma had met him once before at a veterans barbecue and remembered him as sharp-tongued and fiercely loyal. He was smaller than Jack but carried himself with the same alert competence, his dark eyes missing nothing as he assessed the situation. "Show me everything," he said, without preamble, setting up equipment on Rosa's dining room table, security footage from neighbors' social media accounts, phone records if we can. Get them. These amateur hour criminals always leave a trail. Emma watched in fascination as Toby worked, his fingers flying over multiple keyboards, while screens filled with data. He pulled up Vanessa's Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn profiles, cross-referencing timestamps and location data. "Bingo," he said after an hour of intense focus. "Your girl Lacey has cloud backup turned on for her phone. Guess what uploaded automatically yesterday afternoon?" The video was shaky and brief, clearly filmed hastily on a phone, but it showed everything. Vanessa's face twisted with malicious glee as she cut through Emma's dress, Miranda cheering her on, Lacey giggling nervously behind the camera. The timestamp and GPS data proved they'd been in Rosa's house during the time of the break-in. Emma felt sick watching it, seeing the casual cruelty with which they'd destroyed something so precious, but Jack's expression was pure satisfaction. "This is felony destruction of property in Florida," he said. The dress was worth over $3,000 in materials and labor, which puts it in felony territory. Add breaking and entering, and they're looking at serious jail time. "What do you want to do with this?" Toby asked, ejecting the flash drive containing the evidence. Jack looked at Emma, his green eyes searching her face. "That's up to Emma. We can go to the police right now, press full charges, or we can handle this differently." "Differently how?" Jack's smile was slow and dangerous. "We give them a chance to make this right publicly with consequences that fit the crime." Emma thought about Pastor Helen's sad eyes, about the years of shame and disappointment she must have carried. "What did you have in mind?" "Trust me," Jack said again. "Can you do that?" Looking at this man who'd held her while she cried, who'd spent the night plotting justice instead of revenge, who'd never once suggested that her pain wasn't worth fighting for. Emma felt something shift inside her chest. The scared girl was still there, would probably always be there, but she was stronger now, surrounded by people who loved her and would fight for her. "I trust you," she said, and meant it completely. That afternoon they drove to Vanessa's boutique, a struggling high-end shop in downtown Clearwater that specialized in overpriced accessories and occasion wear. The store was empty except for Vanessa herself, who was arranging jewelry in a display case with the desperate energy of someone trying to save a sinking ship. When she saw Emma and Jack walk through the door, her face went through a series of expressions: surprise, guilt, defiance, and finally calculation. "Emma," she said, forcing a bright smile. "What a surprise, shopping for honeymoon clothes." Emma walked to the center of the store, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "We need to talk about what you did to my wedding dress." Vanessa's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about." Jack stepped forward, his presence filling the small space like a storm front. "We have video, Vanessa, digital evidence, timestamps, GPS data. We know exactly what you, Lacey, and Miranda did yesterday afternoon." The color drained from Vanessa's face, but she rallied quickly. "Even if that were true, you can't prove anything, and besides, what are you going to do, call the police over a prank?" "Actually," Emma said, surprised by her own calm, "we're going to give you a choice. You have 48 hours to do 3 things. Publicly apologize for what you did, replace my dress with something equivalent, and commit to getting professional help for whatever's driving you to hurt people." Vanessa laughed, but it sounded brittle and desperate. "Or what?" Emma pulled out her phone, showing Vanessa A screenshot of the video Toby had recovered, or this goes to every media outlet in Tampa Bay along with all the evidence of planning and premeditation. Your face will be attached to the phrase adult bully for the rest of your life. Vanessa's hand flew to her throat, her breathing becoming rapid and shallow. You can't do that. It would ruin me, my business, my reputation. The way you tried to ruin my wedding. Emma asked quietly. The way you've spent 11 years trying to make me feel worthless. Jack's voice was soft, but carried the weight of absolute authority. 48 hours, Vanessa chose wisely. They left her standing in her empty store surrounded by merchandise she couldn't sell, and a future she could no longer control in the car. Emma's hands shook with adrenaline and something that felt surprisingly like relief. How do you feel? Jack asked as they drove toward Rosa's house. Emma considered the question powerful. She said finally, "For the first time in my life I feel powerful." Jack reached over and took her hand, bringing it to his lips. Good, he said, because tomorrow we're going to remind everyone in this town what happens when you mess with a Navy SEAL's family. 24 hours passed without a word from Vanessa. No apology, no acknowledgement, no sign that she intended to make things right. Emma tried to focus on last-minute wedding preparations, but her heart wasn't in it. Every time she looked at the empty garment bag where her mother's dress should have been, she felt the loss all over again, like a fresh wound that wouldn't heal. Jack, however, was busier than ever coordinating with Toby, executing what he called Phase 2 of their operation. Emma didn't ask for details. She'd learned to trust his judgment completely, but she could see the military precision in everything. He did the careful timing, the strategic patience, the way he moved like a man who knew exactly how the battle would end. Tuesday morning, exactly 48 hours after their ultimatum, Jack's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Emma watched his face as he read it, his expression shifting from neutral to grimly satisfied. "What is it?" she asked. Vanessa's response. Jack said, showing her the screen, "You can't prove anything, and even if you could, nobody will care about some stupid dress drama. Grow up, Emma." Emma felt the familiar sting of humiliation, but this time it was accompanied by something else, anger, pure and righteous, burning in her chest like rocket fuel. She really thinks she can just dismiss this. "Good," Jack said, his smile sharp as a blade. "That makes what happens next so much sweeter." At exactly noon, Toby launched Phase 2, uploading the video to Clearwater Confidential with a carefully crafted article titled, "Adult Bullies Destroy Bride's Wedding Dress." In calculated attack, the footage was edited to pixelate faces for legal protection, but locals immediately recognized Vanessa's voice, Lacey's distinctive laugh, Miranda's nervous giggling. The response was immediate and explosive. Comments poured in faster than the website could load them. Former classmates shared their own stories of Vanessa's cruelty. Teachers who remembered the harassment confirmed details. Neighbors expressed outrage at the violation of Rosa's home. Within hours, the story had been shared thousands of times across social media platforms, spreading far beyond Clearwater's borders. Emma watched the digital wildfire from Rosa's living room, her phone buzzing constantly with messages of support from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Classmates who'd witnessed the bullying, teachers who'd tried to help, strangers who'd been touched by the story of a mother's dress destroyed by petty jealousy. "Emma, I remember when Vanessa made you eat lunch in the bathroom," one former classmate wrote. "I should have said something, and I'm so sorry. My daughter was bullied by girls like this," commented a stranger from Ohio. "Thank you for standing up and showing that actions have consequences. This is what happens when mean girls never grow up," posted a popular Tampa Bay lifestyle blogger. "Some people peak in high school and spend the rest of their lives trying to drag others down to their level." But it was Pastor Helen's comment that hit Emma the hardest. "As Vanessa's mother, I am deeply ashamed of her actions. Emma, you deserved better then, and you deserve better now. I pray that exposure brings accountability and eventually healing for everyone involved." By evening, 3 local news stations had picked up the story, interviewing former classmates and community members about the broader Issue of Adult Bullying. The footage of the dress destruction played on repeat with Emma's face blurred for privacy, but Vanessa, Lacey, and Miranda were quickly identified by viewers who recognized their voices and mannerisms. Wednesday morning, Vanessa arrived at Rosa's house unannounced and furious. Her face was blotchy from crying or drinking or both, and her usually perfect appearance was disheveled. Desperate, she pounded on the front door until Jack answered, his massive frame filling the doorway like an immovable barrier. "You need to fix this," Vanessa demanded, her voice shrill with panic. "My business is ruined. People are calling me a monster. My ex-husband is threatening to use this in our custody, case you have to make it stop. I don't have to do anything." Jack replied, his voice calm but carrying an undertone of steel. "You made your choice when you destroyed Emma's dress, and again when you refused to apologize. It was just a stupid prank." Vanessa screamed, tears streaming down her face. "We were drunk. It wasn't supposed to be this big of a deal." Emma appeared behind Jack, drawn by the commotion. Despite her fear, she felt a strange calm watching this woman who'd terrorized her for years, reduced to begging and desperation. "A prank," Emma said quietly. "You called destroying my mother's wedding dress a prank. I'm sorry, okay?" Vanessa sobbed. "I'm sorry, I was jealous. I was angry. My life is falling apart, and seeing you so happy just made me crazy. But please, you have to help me. People are saying I should be arrested. They're calling for boycotts of my store." Jack stepped aside, letting Emma move to the front. "You want our help," Emma said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Then do what we asked. Publicly apologize, take responsibility, and get professional help." "I can't," Vanessa whispered. "If I admit to breaking into Rosa's house, I could go to jail." "You should go to jail," Emma replied, and the certainty in her voice surprised everyone, including herself. "What you did was criminal, Vanessa. Not just legally, but morally. You violated our home, destroyed something irreplaceable, and tried to shatter my happiness on the most important week of my life." Jack placed his hand on Emma's shoulder, a silent show of support. "You have until tomorrow morning," he told Vanessa. "Post a public apology admitting what you did and committing to make amends, or we release the unedited video with full names and faces to every news outlet in Florida." Vanessa looked between them, seeing no mercy in their expressions, no weakness to exploit. For the first time in her life, she was facing people who wouldn't be intimidated or manipulated. "You're destroying my life," she whispered. "No," Emma said with quiet finality. "You destroyed your own life. We're just making sure everyone knows the truth." That evening, while Vanessa wrestled with her impossible choice, Emma, Rosa, and 3 ladies from Pastor Helen's congregation worked through the night to create a miracle in Rosa's sewing room. They'd found a vintage gown at an estate sale, similar in style to Sophia's original dress, and with steady hands and loving hearts, they began the delicate work of transformation. "Your mama would be so proud, Mia," Rosa whispered as they carefully removed beading from the destroyed dress and transferred it to the new gown. "Not of the dress, but of the woman you've become." Emma worked alongside them, feeling her mother's presence in every stitch, every carefully placed pearl. Her fingers remembered the lessons Sophia had taught her about sewing, about patience, about creating beauty from simple materials. As the night progressed, the gown transformed from a forgotten relic into something magical. Jack appeared periodically, bringing coffee and sandwiches. Marveling at the determination of these women who refused to let cruelty win, he'd seen soldiers show less grit under fire, less commitment to their mission. Watching Emma work with steady concentration, despite everything she'd endured, he felt his love for her deepen into something approaching awe. By dawn, the dress was finished, not exactly like her mother's original, but beautiful in its own right, a testament to Kota resilience and the power of community support. Emma tried it on as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the windows, and for the first time since the attack, she felt like a bride again. Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, wrapped box. "I was saving this for our wedding night," he said, "but I think you need it now." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet engraved with a quote from Maya Angelou, "Still I rise." along with the date of their wedding, for when you need to. Remember how strong you are, Jack said, fastening it around her wrist. Emma looked at herself in Rosa's mirror, seeing not a victim, but a survivor, not someone defined by others' cruelty, but by her own capacity for grace and resilience. I'm ready, she said, and meant it completely. Saturday dawned clear and beautiful, the small beachside chapel filled with friends, family, and unexpected supporters who'd been moved by Emma's story. Pastor Helen officiated with a sermon about redemption, courage, and the choice between bitterness and grace that brought tears to many eyes. When it came time for Jack's vows, he looked directly at Emma, his voice carrying across the chapel with military precision but infinite tenderness. Emma, you've shown me that true strength isn't about how hard you can hit back, but about how you choose to rise above those who try to knock you down. Watching you handle this week with such grace has made me prouder than any medal or commendation ever could. He paused, looking out at the congregation, which included several former classmates who'd come to show support. We're here today because we believe in love over hate, hope over despair, justice over revenge, and I want everyone to know that what happened to Emma's dress was not just an attack on fabric and lace, but on the very idea that good people deserve happiness. The congregation erupted in applause, many people standing to show their support. Emma felt overwhelmed by the outpouring of love from her community. By the way, her story had touched so many hearts and inspired others to speak out against bullying. As they exchanged rings, Emma noticed Vanessa sitting in the very back pew, her face streaked with tears, looking smaller and more broken than Emma had ever seen her. She'd posted her apology that morning, a raw, honest confession that had gone viral for very different reasons than the original video. I destroyed Emma's wedding dress because I was jealous, bitter, and unable to accept that someone I'd bullied in high school had built a beautiful life while mine was falling apart. Vanessa had written, "There's no excuse for what I did, no justification for the pain I caused. I am seeking professional help and will make financial restitution, but I know that can never undo the damage I've done. I can only hope that someday Emma will find it in her heart to forgive me." 3 weeks after the wedding, Emma and Jack returned from their honeymoon in Costa Rica to find their story had taken on a life of its own. The video and Vanessa's apology had sparked a national conversation about adult bullying, social media accountability, and the long-term effects of childhood trauma. Emma received hundreds of messages from bullying survivors sharing their own stories, thanking her for showing that victims could reclaim their power, that silence wasn't the only option. Inspired by the response, she and Pastor Helen started a support group for young women dealing with harassment and low self-esteem. "Your story gave me the courage to report my workplace bully," wrote one woman. "Seeing how you stood up for yourself made me realize I deserved better too." Vanessa kept her word, entering therapy and slowly rebuilding her relationship with her mother. She sent Emma a check covering the cost of the original dress restoration, along with a handwritten note. "I know money can't fix what I broke, but I hope it's a start. I'm learning that hurt people, but that's not an excuse. Just an explanation. I'm working to be better." Emma never responded directly, but she didn't cash the check either. Instead, she framed it alongside a photo of her mother and hung it in her art studio, a reminder that even the deepest wounds could become sources of strength. Jack channeled his protective instincts into positive action, partnering with Toby to create Shield and Voice, a nonprofit that helped bullying victims document harassment and seek justice through proper legal channels. They trained volunteers to provide both technical support and emotional guidance, combining Jack's military precision with therapeutic principles. 6 months later, Emma stood in her classroom watching the shy student named Sarah work on a watercolor painting. The girl reminded her so much of herself at that age, quiet, artistic, carrying invisible wounds from classmates who mistook kindness for weakness. "It's beautiful, Sarah," Emma said, admiring the delicate flower the girl had painted. "Your mom would be so proud." Sarah looked up with surprise. "How did you know my mom died last year?" Emma touched the silver locket. Jack had given her feeling the familiar comfort of her mother's presence, because I know what it's like to miss someone. That much, and I know that love doesn't end when someone dies, it just changes form. As Sarah smiled and returned to her painting, Emma felt the circle of healing complete. Her story had started with destruction and cruelty, but it had become something larger, a testament to the truth that love really does find a way that broken things can be made beautiful again, and that sometimes the worst moments of our lives become the foundation for our greatest triumphs. The dress that had been destroyed was gone forever, but the woman who emerged from that crisis was stronger, more compassionate, and more committed to justice than ever before. And in the end, that transformation was worth more than any wedding gown could ever be. Up next we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.